I thank Honorable Baki Maka for the initiative taken on his part to table this motion in Parliament today. முதலாவது விடயம், நான் இங்கு சொல்ல வேண்டிய ஒரு முக்கியமான விடயம், இந்த இஸ்ரேல் என்கின்ற ஒரு சின்ன நாடு இவ்வாறு உலகத்திலே நடக்க முடியாத அநியாயங்களை எல்லாம் செய்து கொண்டிருக்கின்ற போது எந்தெந்த நாடெல்லாம் ஹியூமன் ரைட்ஸை பற்றியும் ஜனநாயகத்தை பற்றியும் எல்லா விதமான மனித உரிமைகள் பற்றியும் பேசுகின்ற அத்தனை குள்ள நாடுகளும் தான் இந்த ஒரு சிறிய நாடை இவ்வாறு ஒரு மனித படுகொலைக்கு தள்ளி இருப்பது மாத்திரமல்ல, அவர்களுடைய செயலின் காரணமாகத்தான் இவ்வாறான படுகொலைகளை செய்கின்ற ஒரு அராஜகத்தன்மையுடைய ஒரு 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 கொலை செய்கின்ற பச்சிளங் குழந்தைகளை கூட கொலை செய்கின்ற அரக்கர்களாக அந்த இஸ்ரேலியர்கள் இருக்கின்றதை நாங்கள் ஒருபோதும் மன்னிக்க முடியாது. இந்த உலகத்திலே இருக்கின்ற அத்தனை மக்களும் எதிர்க்கின்ற ஒரு விடயமாக இருந்த போதிலும் அதனை தடுத்து நிறுத்த முடியாத ஒரு கோழைகளாக அதற்கு உதவி செய்கின்ற பல நாடுகள் இன்று ஜனநாயகத்தை பற்றி கதைத்துக் கொண்டு இவற்றை இவ்வாறான குள்ள வேலைகளை டபுள் ஸ்டாண்ட் பேசுகின்ற நாடுகளாக இருக்கின்ற வரைக்கும் இந்த உலகத்திலே எந்த ஒரு மூலையிலும் நிம்மதி இருக்க முடியாது, ஜனநாயகம் இருக்க முடியாது. I would like to start by updating the House on the situation on the ground, which is of great concern. The security situation continues to deteriorate, leading to deplorable numbers of Palestine and Israeli victims. This year alone, the number of Palestinians killed in confrontations with the Israeli Defense Forces in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, has more than doubled compared to the same period last year, to more than 130, including at least 22 children. In addition, large-scale destruction of property is caused by Israeli settlers. The number of Israelis killed by Palestine perpetrators has also increased to 31, compared to 28 in the same period last year, with many more injured on both sides. We are also witnessing an alarming increase of demolitions, evictions, and settlement expansion, with around 13,000 new settlement units announced in the occupied West Bank and approved by Israel in the past 6 months alone, and new administrative procedures to expedite settlement expansion. Many countries have urged Israel not to proceed with these measures, which are illegal under international law. Honorable Presiding Member, all these developments only serve to fuel the cycle of violations that has accelerated to alarming levels in recent months. It is clear that the only way to break out of this vicious cycle is a return to effective security cooperation between the Palestine Authority and Israel. But we know from experience that the security track cannot be separated from the political track. Remote as it may look today, there is no viable alternative to the two-state solution. And the longer it takes, the more difficult it will become. In general, Palestinians have compromised by accepting the international legality and recommendations of the two-state solutions on the 1967 border with East Jerusalem as its capital. This means that Palestinians have agreed to have their state on 20% of their historical Palestine, which I recognize as a huge sacrifice on the part of Palestine for the interest of sustainable peace and to end violence. However, the present Israeli government has declared directly that Palestinians should remove the idea of a two-state solution from their mind. That is why they declared to rebuild settlements in the north of the West Bank. Israel government has declared to build 10 new settlements on Palestine, confiscated lands, and to build 10,000 housing units for settlers on occupied Palestine territories. Further, the extreme Israeli government encouraged settlers under the protection of the Israeli army to burn many villages, homes, fields, and kills Palestinians. They have also taken an addition to arm the Israeli settlers with more weapons. This is clear ethnic cleansing carried out against the people of the land. Honorable Presiding Member, Israeli authorities must be held accountable for committing the crime of apartheid against Palestinians. According to a recent Amnesty International report, Israel enforces a system of oppression and domination against the Palestinian people, whatever it has control over their rights. This includes Palestinians living in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, as well as displaced refugees in other countries. The report sets out how massive seizures of Palestinian land and property, unlawful killings, forcible transfer, drastic movement restrictions, and other denial of nationality and citizenship to Palestinians are all components of a system which amounts to apartheid under international law. This system is maintained by violations which is found to be constituting apartheid as a crime against humanity, as defined in the Rome Statute and apartheid conventions. Successive Israeli governments have considered Palestinians a demographic threat and imposed measures to control and decrease their presence and access to land in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. These demographic aims are well illustrated by official plans to Judaize areas of Israel and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, which continue to put thousands of Palestinians at risk of forcible transfer. Honorable Presiding Member, we must call for an end to the brutal practice of home demolitions and forced evictions as a first step. Israel must grant equal rights to all Palestinians in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, in line with principles of international human rights and humanitarian law. It must recognize the right of Palestinian refugees and their descendants to return to homes where they or their families once lived, and provide victims of human rights violations and crimes against humanity with full reparations. The scale and seriousness of the violations call for a drastic change in the international community's approach to the human rights crisis in Israel and the OPT. We must step up support for the Palestinian causes in keeping with our stated policy of proactive and progressive non-alignment. We must express concern over the international community's failure to impose tough sanctions on Israel for its continuous defense of UN sanctions, UN resolutions. We must also urge the world community to take punitive measures to compel Israel to end its occupation of Palestine, oppressive policies, and human rights violations. In conclusion, I must reiterate the commitment of the government of His Excellency the President Ranil Wickremesinghe to the liberation of Palestine and also right of self-determinations of Palestinians. Sri Lanka as a nation is always maintaining a consistent policy of the Palestinian cause and extending extensive support on Palestine in the multilateral forums. President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his message on the International Day of Solidarity Day with the Palestinian people, which fallen on November 29, 2022, has reaffirmed Sri Lanka's steadfast solidarity with the government and the people of Palestine. I'll be failing in my duties if I did not thank profoundly on behalf of the Muslim community in Sri Lanka, His Excellency the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, for his bold remarks of condemnations over the burning of the Holy Quran in Sweden. His strong urging from Western nations to uphold the value
Honorable
system.
Minister, you have 2 more minutes.
His strong urging from Western nations to uphold the value system of the global South and refrain from allowing disturbances under the pretext of freedom of expressions is a very clear message which entire Sri Lanka could be proud of. Finally, the government has always criticized the violations unleashed against Palestinians, and we will continue to do so while expressing solidarity with the people of Palestine and working with the rest of the world community to end Asia's last colony. Thank you.